More than 17,000 migrants have crossed the Channel since the start of 2023, with at least 500 of them arriving in Dover Harbour this morning. Well, joining us live from Dover is GB News' Home and Security Editor Mark White. Mark, how much of this then today is down to the weather, which looks absolutely glorious and therefore means very calm seas?
Yeah, there's no doubt. I think it's all down to the weather, the surge, because what you've had so much really in recent months are conditions which are just not really conducive to pushing these flimsy small boats out into the middle of the channel. So yes, every day that the weather kind of breaks and you get some flat calm or at least reasonably calm conditions out in the channel, it's never really flat calm. There are always strong running tides, the wake from these big cargo vessels and other vessels that plough this very busy shipping lane, and just waves, even on supposed flat calm days. So when it does get to the point where it's not as difficult out there, then you get these boats being pushed across, and that's what we're seeing today. It's very sunny here in Dover Harbour, but actually out in the channel, as I say, it's still a little bit choppy. The winds are picking up, and we had this surge started really about 6 a.m. Before that, even though at 3:30 in the morning we had the Border Force catamaran, one of the Border Force vessels, into Dover Harbour with 50 people on board that they'd taken off a small boat. Then after 6, that's when sighting after sighting was being reported by lots of the passing shipping as well. The Border Force spotter planes were out there as well as various vessels, and it got to a point where actually there were so many sightings that the lifeboats had to come in to help out Border Force. So we had Dover lifeboat, Ramsgate's lifeboat and Dungeness lifeboat all launched as well. So we calculate at least 8 small boats that have been intercepted and the occupants taken to Dover Harbour and to Dungeness. It's around about 500 people. And we've noticed as well a very worrying trend that the people smugglers have adopted, which is cramming even more people on these boats. At least 4 of the 8 boats that we know of today had up to 65 people on board the vessels. And that's why, of course, when that happens, we see people ending up in the water.
Yeah, Mark, it's only 4 days since that disaster, just 4 miles off the coast of France, and yet still overladen vessels are coming. The Bibi Stockholm disaster, the only boat they managed to stop. We passed 100,000 mark. Illegals walking out of RAF bases complaining about the conditions inside. £500 million to the French. Feels like we're throwing bad money after good. 20% of French police on holiday. Is it finally feeling this is the week when the government completely lost control of our borders?
Well, certainly last week was, I think, a very difficult week for them because it was supposed to be their small boats week. Well, it clearly was, but for all the wrong reasons. Instead of talking about what they wanted us to talk about, which was the successes of putting the first migrants onto the Bibi Stockholm, well, a few days later they were pulled off. Also talking about the new deal with Turkey. Well, of course, that was overwhelmed by very busy days, multiple rescues, ending on Saturday with that tragedy and 6 people dying in the channel. I just want to give you, as we speak to you, a shot down into the harbour. You'll see that we're at a period as we expected today, of a bit of a lull in activity. So down there, we'll show you 2 of the Border Force catamarans that are tied up at the moment, having unloaded the people that they had picked up from small boats out in the channel. They are just waiting for other taskings. There are a couple of Border Force vessels out in the channel. The lifeboats are back in at the moment. What you get, of course, is a surge in the morning, taking advantage, the people smugglers, that is, taking advantage of the tidal conditions. And then there's usually about a lull during the day, and it starts to pick up as we move towards the early evening again. So we think, as I say, about 500 so far today, but every expectation that later in the day that number will increase significantly.